as well, because why not? Did they do regrading in Sioux City as well? There's no reason to doubt that because it seems like it was a very easy and cost effective method to do, even though we're informed currently that these are still the most stunning engineering achievements for these cities in their entire history. To say nothing of that retaining wall over in Dubuque, Iowa, which again has a very questionable history behind it. And it wouldn't be a city unless you had a very elaborate train station here from Chicago Northwest in Sioux City. And look at this, a safe city to invest in. Earliest settlement in January 1892. And I'm merely showing this because this is the example of the early town, city, and county records that we have. Ah, yes, just a very simply binded book. And recall there were all sorts of issues with the paper that were used in the 1800s because it wasn't acid-free.
Heck, did I put my thing
Like
out?
the
Shoot.
tower office with their train station. Now, what was really going on with these corn palaces? They were just bored and they decided to
Oh,
do
there we
corn
go.
palaces all the time. It wasn't challenging enough to build a city out of nothing with elaborate city halls and county courthouses, and of course the train stations. Oh, yes, and they also had a very impressive stock exchange that, again, kind of looks like a castle in Sioux City because why wouldn't you have something like that? So it's not just breweries that were built like this. It was also livestock exchanges. You know, if you were down south, it would be the cotton exchange, I suppose. But this is the Midwest of the United States. Everything's about livestock here. And why not have one of these very impressive railroad roundhouses that just it's a mega colossal structure. Now, again, looking at some of these earlier images of this high school, and again, you see exactly what it is. It's a castle. What was really the purpose for constructing like this at any point in time? How do you defend this being a castle structure from the mainstream historical account? This is just supposed to be a school. Were we expecting our school to come under siege? I mean, yes, the official history tells us that there were many Native American tribes that were still in the area that were considered hostile. So was it a last-ditch defense plan? Was there a concern that there were going to be raiders coming up who were still sympathetic to the old Confederate States of America? There's really no explanation behind it. There's no explanation for why we have corn palaces with elaborate as this. Or the early impressive city hall in Sioux City, Iowa, with a very unique tower and a very little dome on top with an intriguing spire. Why did they ever want to go away from this? Well, we'll be told that it was condemned over a period of time. So it was replaced with this newer city hall. And then they even go so far as to tell us that in the 1990s, they really rebuilt this city hall by utilizing the old stones. Yes, they actually say they pulled that off. Now, we have the county courthouse here in Sioux City, Iowa, and this is very interesting. Now, on the outside, this is another one of these structures that doesn't look so impressive. Now, the official history tells us that this county courthouse was built 1916 to 1918, so during World War I, when the United States was involved in World War I. And keep in mind, that was a total war concept for the United States. How exactly did the symbols on this courthouse, the Woodbury County Courthouse, remind us of the United States, or Iowa for that fact? And it seems as though some of the images give us the impression that it might just be a little bit older, but maybe that's just something that we get. I'm always intrigued when we take a close look at a lot of this, because we see these images in multiple locations. What exactly did they represent? Was this just simply the terracotta imagery that everybody used? Were these prefabricated constructions for when you decided to build your unique courthouse? And here we have the board of supervisors and the architect, who were the contractors. Well, we don't really need to know who the contractors were. We just have two general contractors listed. We can just assume that there were artisans and craftsmen all over the place that you could just pull off the street. And they were the ones who fashioned these very incredible and human-like figures that we still see in the courthouse to this day. And it's very similar to the hotel that we looked at in Los Angeles, where the structure itself from a distance looks rather bland. But when you look closely at it, you see all the impressive, intricate detail. Was this really done by our people in Sioux City, Iowa in 1916 and 1918? We even have an earlier courthouse in Sioux City, which is very impressive in and of itself. Now you might be asking, well, if this was the earlier courthouse and then it was replaced, it was certainly in the same location. Was it in the same location? It's always intriguing when you look at this and you have this account. Now, some historical accounts say they're in the same location, other accounts say they're in different locations. So, why move? Why even ever replace this courthouse? Well, there's a variety of reasons. It was structurally unsound, it was slowly falling apart. So, here we've got this new one that we did. And we constructed it in 1916 and 1918 to endure. And we also decorated it quite extensively. And while we're at it, we're able to establish geometric precision in the construction. Again, the interior painting is rather interesting, or the mural, or whatever you want to call it. Again, how exactly does this represent the people of Iowa in 1916 and 1918? Were the people of Iowa wearing togas and parading around in an idyllic situation? Is that really what we're missing here? I mean, we've seen plenty of images and even video footage of World War I and all the recruits going there. But this doesn't look like these are the people, especially from Iowa in World War I. What's with this particular figure here? Is this the great god of Iowa, Atlas, with his 12-pack abs? Is this representing something else? Is this supposed to be the one true god? What's with all these figures by this figure? And why is this on a county courthouse? What exactly is this truly representing? Now, I'm just throwing out questions and considerations because why would anybody put this on a county courthouse today or in 1916 and 1918? Yes, I know. We want to convey the concept of governmental authority at the county level. And what better way to do it than to put all of the Mr. Burns dressed up as God figures in statues on the courthouse? And again, how would you have the money and the time or the inclination to do that? And as we understand it, was the United States not focused on World War I? There's all the questions we always have about economic capability, but the United States can easily go through a Great Depression. Remember the first Great Depression in the 1870s, and remember all the panics that came after that. And remember all the incredible achievements the United States had before the establishment of the Federal Reserve. What an incredible eagle they have on this county courthouse. Now, I will say this, at least an eagle is associated with the symbolism of both the United States and Iowa. There is an eagle on the Iowa flag, although I have to say this eagle that we see that's on this courthouse is much more impressive than any eagle on any flag. I would even go so far as to say that any sort of figure like this on a building is more impressive than a flag in general, but that's just my opinion. Maybe you've got a thing for flags and flags make sense to you. But how can we really justify this courthouse? And you can see next to it is the tower from the city hall that was apparently renovated and reconstructed in the 1990s utilizing the original stone. And another question I have is, what exactly is the construction material? Are these just standard bricks? What are the blocks that make up these impressive sculpted figures? How exactly did they do this? Were these prefabricated? Was this face prefabricated somewhere just sitting around in some shop, maybe in Chicago or New York, and then it was brought out by train and then lifted perfectly into place? Is that how they did things in 1916 and 1918? And if they did have that capability then, why are we still not doing this now? I know that the usual litany of answers about, well, we just don't have the desire to do this. We don't have the money, which is hilarious because we can always raise the debt ceiling, so how can we not have money now? But whatever, we'll accept that. Or, well, we don't have artisans and craftsmen, all these immigrants coming from Europe that are just experts. Yes, this is the dome that's inside the Woodbury County Courthouse. You don't actually see it from the outside because it's a dome within the structure, and yet it's that impressive. And here's an example of a black and white photograph allowing you to see some of the intricacy within the interior of the Woodbury County Courthouse in Sioux City, Iowa. So why do we not construct structures like this today? Why don't we put all this elaborate decoration on the walls, on the ceiling, on the columns? Is that an owl figure I see over there? Is that just my mind playing tricks on me? I'm not really sure. What does all this symbolism really represent? Well, it's just decoration. And here is Sioux City's Orpheum Theater, because why not have another Orpheum Theater over in Sioux City, Iowa? I mean, it was founded in the exact same year as Omaha, so maybe that was the year they were earmarking Orpheum Theaters. Look, it's not built yet. Oh, look at that. I see our favorite Cartouche up there. Yes, right above the main theater itself. Because why not? A very impressive theater that needs to be very elaborately decorated on the inside. And near Sioux City, we have the Floyd Monument, named after Sergeant Floyd, a non-commissioned officer, who has a very elaborate obelisk monument that's dedicated to him. Now, we've looked at this before in previous explorations, and here are some wide image shots to give you an idea about it. Now, it may not seem that impressive, especially when compared to the Washington Monument, but it was constructed in 1900 to 1901 by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it commemorates the Lewis and Clark expedition. And here we see an image of William Clark. We don't have any photographs because both Lewis and Clark passed away before photography, but we do have many elaborate painted images of them. Why does William Clark remind me of many actors once again? I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination. Eyes look so lifelike in this particular painting. And they always had such elaborate hairdos, too, from that time frame. But it's funny to me how nobody really looks into the biographies of William Clark and Meriwether Lewis. It's quite intriguing. Everybody always refers to it as the Lewis and Clark expedition to the Pacific, and it was when the two adventurers went off leading their expedition of many soldiers and explorers to chart this path through the New Louisiana Purchase and understand what was there. Ah, yes, another one of our scaffolding construction images that gives us the impression that the obelisk was complete. And here you can actually see the route of the Lewis and Clark expedition. How fortuitous that the Louisiana Purchase just happens to match the area that we designate as the Great Plains. And then it goes all the way out to where we have Seattle. Here is Sergeant Floyd, and he bears a striking resemblance to many an actor to this day. Very interesting look to him. And apparently he passed away of an appendicitis, at least that's what the official history says, near Sioux City. And it's also interesting to note that this particular obelisk is considered the first U.S. National Historical Monument. How fascinating. Again, something else noteworthy about Iowa. And here you have this interesting little plaque that seems a little bit more ornate, designated the gravesite of Sergeant Floyd. The Floyd Memorial Association, aided by the United States and the state of Iowa, different entities. And of course you have the information marker that tells you exactly how Sergeant Floyd died on the Lewis and Clark expedition. And they knew exactly where they buried him. That's quite a designation for a non-commissioned officer. I mean, how many non-commissioned officers passed away in the Civil War and they didn't get an entire obelisk constructed to them? And I just find that intriguing because if you step back and look at this, this is the most opulent monument that's dedicated to the Lewis and Clark expedition. And even on the early maps, isn't it amazing how straight and perfect that old route is? Because this was a map that was drawn by Lewis and Clark, apparently. And there you see it, Floyd's grave. They had Floyd's grave marked there. Now look, I'm all about giving respect to the dead, but they really seem to go the extra mile for this Sergeant Floyd. And when you compare this obelisk to other monuments across the United States that are commemorating the Lewis and Clark expedition, none of them come close to comparing to this impressive obelisk in Sioux City, Iowa. So what's really going on? Meriwether Lewis is a rather interesting character in and of himself, and when you actually look at the history of both Lewis and Clark, you'll see that they have rather unique biographies. One even serving in the Legion of the United States, what they originally called the United States Army, when they were having trouble in what was called the Northwest Indian War. And the Legion of the United States was the formation created by General Mad Anthony Wayne. That was the original regular United States Army. Meriwether Lewis has a very interesting family coat of arms. A dragon on the top, and in the coat of arms, it's a dragon with a bloody hand in its mouth. Boy, just when I thought I'd seen all the most interesting family coats of arms, well, when you've got the Lewis coat of arms, you've got a dragon eating a hand. But remember, the most impressive monument for the Lewis and Clark expedition, dedicated to the memorial of Sergeant Floyd. So, I guess if you're on an exploration expedition and you're a non-commissioned officer, you're going to get the very best monument. This is apparently a biography that was written by Thomas Jefferson for Lewis and Clark. But, it's really hard to say, is this Jefferson's original writing or is this a copy of it? Because remember, documents from the 1800s didn't really survive. What's really the story behind William Clark? What's within the background of these individuals? Why do they seem like they have almost a
I know it
legendary
was all that. I didn't touch anything that fell by itself, and it was an area where it was stacked where, like, if somebody moved that, yeah.
And up in
I
Sioux
know you guys saw
Falls
that.
in South Dakota, where we also have examples of this
Crazy world we live in,
impressive
guys.
stone that just seem to be abundant across the
took
Great
you, so.
Plains. Sandstone, limestone, redstone, all the unique names that we have for it. As though they're just quarries all over the place that are readily available with this unique stone, and we could build structures that were our city halls, our county courthouses. What do you think's going on? Was there a mud flood? Thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, and subscribe.